Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
We are doctors
and weight management and metabolic health experts.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Good morning, lovely friend. I'm without Dr. Mary today, but I have a spectacular guest in her place. I am super excited and honestly, we have so many shared values and goals. She works really in the child nutrition space and is an absolute trailblazer pioneer in the, what I would probably call the battle of big food and big everything. But, she herself has a big voice as well. So I am super pleased to welcome Belinda Smith. Belle, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me and, getting to share with your incredible audience. I'm a 57-year-old mum of two, fairly and squarely now post-menopause. And, if I forget things through this, that would be because I only got 6 hours sleep last night instead of my normal 8. So I must apologise.
Oh.
Menopause brain.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Menopause brain. Oh, I know. Yes, absolutely. Well, look, you're amongst friends here. As you know, most of the people who listen to us are women, and look, they're usually somewhere between about 35 and 70. So we've got the full gamut of younger mums of younger kids, mums of teenage kids, grandmothers, mums of kidults. I'm a mother of a kidult, 2 kidults, and now a puppy. There's all the whole experience. But, I think your work, in fact, maybe I'll let you talk about your work and what you do and where you are able to help, I guess, look at particularly, how to feed your kids in the bare bones of it all.
Yeah, thank you. I guess where I started with this, I was a 42-year-old. I had a pretty full corporate life and I left to become a mum. And I had a 5-year-old daughter and had just given birth to my my second child. And not very long after that, my husband was diagnosed with postnatal depression. And, we're talking about 15 years ago now, and his psychologist was pretty forward thinking for back then. She actually said, you need to look at sleep, exercise, and what you are eating. And I was like, what do you mean what I'm eating? Like, I cook from scratch. That was when I actually learned I was cooking from scratch with formulations like packets of Maggi mix or, like those jars of sauces. And so very quickly I realised that I was not a cook from scratch kind of person, and that my lunchboxes that I was sending my daughter to first year of school with was dehydrated potato sticks and, things like that.
But you know what? It's not our fault. Like I'm the same. That book, in fact, there's not just a book, a whole franchise on the 4 ingredients recipe book. And it's actually not 4 ingredients. It's 4 products, each with 20 ingredients. It's actually 80 ingredient book. So I think, it is tricky. What we got taught was an ingredient is not an ingredient necessarily.
No, it's like what you and I were talking about before about, these things are industrialized formulations. But I guess that was 42, husband postnatal depression, new baby, child in kindergarten who was already anxious, and we discovered very quickly that my husband's ability to regulate his moods was directly correlated to his eating of gluten. And so we went gluten-free, and what I actually discovered purely by accident of having family portraits done was that my daughter wasn't celiac, but she was highly affected by gluten. She had like purple rings under her eyes, and when we got rid of gluten after months and months, her ability and my husband's ability to regulate their moods totally shifted, and her little purple rings just went. And I guess the work that I've been doing for the last 13 years, which is really about raising awareness about the power of food and what's in my food, because that's what I learned. Like, there's things in these food that we have no idea. I fell into this work because my daughter started getting teased at school about her lunchboxes. So going back 15 years, a kid with a steel bento lunchbox that had no sandwiches in it, no packaged food. She bore the brunt of a lot of teasing and she stopped eating at school.
Oh, no.
And I would pick her up in the afternoon and she'd be shaking. And then I finally discovered that it was because she was getting teased. So her teacher, fortunately, was health conscious, and she said, why don't you come in and talk to the kids about it? So I created some quirky experiments because my background was in training and I wanted to make it fun. And the next day at school, I had parents coming up saying, whatever it is that you said to my son or my daughter, like it's totally shifted. They've been pulling things out of the pantry and reading the ingredients. And I guess that spurred me on to actually go, when kids have fun with food, I always say food's a fun experiment, when they have fun with food and they understand the connection about what it means to their body and their brain and even to the planet, then they want to work with us parents rather than us saying, oh, eat your broccoli. No, you can't have that. You know, they actually want to work with them. So as I started to do that work around Sydney, we decided that we were going to sell up and travel Australia, and we purchased an old coach, turned it into a mobile billboard to promote children's health, and we travelled around the country for 2.5 years raising awareness about, you know, what's in my food, and we went into over 90 schools around the country, and that's my signature program is the Mad Food Science Incursion that we run at schools. That's now morphed after all of these years into a partnership program where we work with the school rather than just go in for a day. We work with the school across a whole year, and that's our Making Friends with Food partnership. And then, you know, it's still that same underlying thing, like just if we don't stand for our kids' health, then who else is going to do it? And it's hard, you know.
Well, you know who'll do it is that, you know, sneaky Maccas who come in at every opportunity to sponsor school sport, or Milo will sponsor cricket, or whatever it is. There's a big food company ready to sponsor. So benevolent of them. Aren't they so kind?
Yes, they are very kind, you know, because they give one, you know, voucher, and most people have 2 to 3 kids. So if one kid gets it, you've got to buy it for the other 2.
It is the tobacco technique, isn't it? Get them young and you've got a customer for life. Do you get much pushback from people who, I guess, feel, for many reasons, maybe feel defensive or feel you too, you know, virtuous or rigid or not realistic, or all of those things, or all of the above?
Yes, there's been a lot of that over the years. You know, I've been trolled, I've been called, you know, lunchbox police, I've been, you know, told that my kids must hate me, and, you know, all sorts of things. I've even had a high-profile Australian dietitian come at me and make a reel talking about, you know, real food, and she puts up packets of potato chips. You know, this is real food. And so all of those times, particularly the trolls in the very early days, I was so inexperienced with that. Like I remember we were travelling Australia in our first year, and I had been down in Deniliquin, and we had run a family event where, you know, I was helping parents and kids work together to look at common foods that they were eating. And a young boy discovered what was in one of those pop-top drinks. And I innocently went to bed at 10 o'clock at night, had posted on social media about what had happened and about how the boy learned about it. The next day I had over 10,000 followers just from that post, but I got trolled so badly by, you know, it was very clear. I had a few people in my court who were experienced in this, and one of them, I will be forever grateful, reminded me that these people get paid by companies like, well, food manufacturing companies to do that kind of stuff, to discredit us. So, yeah, there's been a lot of it, but one of the things that I do take a lot of pride in is the fact that there's a lot of people, probably people in your audience, who are going up against it all the time, and they actually feel like they're supported and vindicated because someone's using their voice to say these things. You know, like I often get people say, I don't want to be that mum. And I'm like, be that mum, you know, like be proud, be that mum, you know. And I guess that's what I really, you know, I can deal with the words that people say. It hurts, it stings, but, you know, what do you do? I look at my own kids and I say I could give up, and what am I teaching them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good to have had that reminder from the friend that, yes, trolls are paid. And, you know, I remember going along to an event and sitting next, I was at a table of dietitians. I felt like the odd person out. And these were young and they were really lovely people. But it was my first realization that they got paid by companies to do posts. And this was, again, before you had to declare that you were sponsored. You didn't have to declare. They just, oh my God, the conflict of interest is, you know, so it's not just the big players, it's also little players in there. And just, they are strategic big food companies, really clever, strategic, relentless, and they will stamp on somebody who potentially threatens them. So I guess for you, it's great. Trolls mean you're making a difference. Like they're seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and I've sat in on parliamentary committees where I've heard food manufacturers giving evidence, and aren't we wonderful because we provide all these jobs and we get, you know, like, you know, put all the taxes back. And I'm like, but what are you costing? Like, what's the health burden? Like,
oh, absolutely. And on top of that, they lobby both sides of parliament, both political parties. So they, you know, it's very hard potentially for a political party to pass legislations that may influence the bottom line of these companies, because they will withdraw their donation and that will mean the other party will win. And it's like, ugh.
That, I guess that's why what's happened in America, not that I agree with
everything,
the way that, yes, but the fact that a country of that power has actually come out and said, you know, ultra-processed foods are dangerous is actually extremely powerful. And I'm actually still sitting back. Maybe I'm a bit sceptical, but waiting to see what, you know, happens with our dietary guidelines that have been under review for a couple of years and supposed to roll out at end of 2027. I'm interested to see, I haven't seen, and maybe I've missed it, a statement about, you know, whether we're looking, yeah, okay, well, I thought I might have been missing it because I don't dwell on media. When I first started this work 13 years ago, the big focus was on obesity, childhood obesity. We've gone way past that because it's not even overweightness anymore. You know, we have kids that are malnourished because they're just not eating appropriate foods that support their health. And the conversations that, you know, so I guess I wrote my book in 2018, 2019 after sitting in on a parliamentary committee, having my work put in front of and mentioned in Parliament, only for them not to consider anything. Back then I was talking about the levels of processing and, you know, additives. Still we're not there. And we're still dabbling over here, but health has moved. Like we've now got 45% of Australian children have one or more chronic conditions. I just can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I mean, the evidence, as you said, is very clear on the dangers of ultra-processed food. There's lots of work done by, you know, Felice Jacker and her gang on food and mood. It is really clear that food, you know, our saying real food is medicine. But it's so interesting because you get even pushback from health professionals who will say, oh, don't demonize food. You know, food isn't medicine. Medicine's medicine. Food's just food. You know, and like you're saying, they're holding up packets of chips going, this is food. It's like, well, it's a food product. It's not a food. And I think the trickiest bit in all of this is the inequity we have with the ability for people to access real food because of cost or where they live or availability. And I'm sure you're a fan of Chris Van Tulleken's book, Ultra Processed People. Yeah, totally like the best book ever. And he talks about, the food deserts where there's no fresh food, even into suburbs. It's all processed food, takeaways, all of that stuff.
Yeah. It's quite like the way our governments actually allow these companies to firstly set up. Like there's a place in Sydney, like out at Western Sydney, it's like Diabetes Corner. They've got Hungry Jack's, they've got Macca's, they've got Subway, and like all in this thing. And you can sit there in your car, and we did this when going back to 2018. I'm sure it's changed a bit, but sat there in our car, and at 3:00 in the afternoon, you would start to see the queues in lining up of people in their cars picking up food after school. And our health is shaped by our environment. That is not, it's not a parent's fault. I mean, it really annoys me. Yes, it's a personal choice, but when you're tired, you're exhausted, you've got kids nagging you, you've got these companies giving them sports vouchers because they played well at cricket that weekend, it is really, really hard. We don't even have a microwave, and one of my incidents that I remember the most was when a Star Wars movie came out many, many years ago when my son's now 15, so he probably was maybe 4 or 5, and he wanted microwave popcorn because of the Star Wars character on the front. And he was wailing and he was bawling and, screaming. And I'm like, we don't have a microwave. We're not having it. And a little old lady, an old grumpy old man told me I should smack him. And then a little old lady gave him $5. And I was, we are really up against a lot. So I guess for everyone that's listening and you're in that space, we're doing the best that we can, and we're all like you. It's not about being perfect. It's not about, don't have.
Yeah, never ever.
Yeah, it's, let's live life, but also, find the ways that we can make it easy for ourselves and our kids to, get by. And I guess one of the things that I'm really working on this year is trying to get our educational leaders to think about food as an input to wellbeing. Because at the moment, a lot of them balk because they don't want to have problems with parents. We can't tell them what to pack. They're totally oblivious that they're role modelling behaviours based on what they have in the canteen, based on giving out super dupers as rewards. And, there's so many things that a school can do that doesn't involve telling a parent anything. So I'm trying to raise the conversation this year about let's start thinking as food as an input to wellbeing. It's not peripheral. It's actually a foundational piece. Unless we start looking at what are we doing, then we're missing that foundational piece. Food is information. We need them to see that food is information to their body. It affects their body, their brain, their sleep, their mental health. And when we can educate people from that level, we can remove the stigma and the judgment, and it's a big reason why I think the language that we use is particularly important. Lunchboxes have become about snacking, and we know we've been collecting data since 2019 from over 24,000 lunchboxes. We know that on average, this is primary school, I should say, on average 2.2 packaged foods, over 10 ingredients per packet, so they're squarely in the domain of ultra-processed foods, about 4 teaspoons of sugar. If we think of food as an input and as information to our body, what information are we feeding our biological condition? Are we setting our kids up for learning and behaviour? So I think the language that we use is even stop labeling things as snack foods and treats.
Oh,
because what do we say to people when we say, like we're putting a treat in their lunchbox, like a little Cadbury chocolate bar or a Mars bar. We're putting a treat in there. What are you saying about the rest of the food that we're putting in there? And I guess schools only give kids on average about 15 minutes to eat lunch. So if you've put a snack or something that you've made fun and exciting in there, what do you think they're going to gravitate to first? They've just been locked up for 3 or 4 hours not being able to talk to their friends, and they've come out and they have to sit and eat in a short time before they go off and eat. There's obviously the convenience of packages, but there's ways that we could look at those even. How do we make them a better input for our kids? How can we make it friendlier for their, we say their one body for life? Like how do we set them up with foods that are friendlier for their health?
Oh, I love that. And you're right. I mean, honestly, I hadn't thought about the idea that if this is a treat food, then all the rest is obviously untreat food. Or if this is a sweet treat, then the rest of it is, non-sweet garbage in their mind. We spend a lot of time undoing the treat word because it is also tied then to reward, which you've mentioned as well, that, food becomes a reward. And I remember when my daughter was young and there was some sort of like a maths lesson, and they had to answer, a times table. And if you got the right answer, you got a jelly dinosaur thing. It was like, what? Like we don't need to reward kids with lollies for getting the right answer. Like the right answer is the reward. Like that's enough. And even things like basketball, we used to get oranges at halftime, and now they get lollies, and at the end it's lolly snakes. They don't need it. They just don't need it. And Jamie Oliver, as you know, I'm sure you know about all of that entire series as well. And again, he did this great experiment where there was, lots of pushback from the school going into American school canteens, and, they're offering plain milk versus chocolate milk. Well, no one wanted the plain milk when the chocolate milk was on offer, But if you took the chocolate milk away, there was maybe a bit of grumbling, and then over time they just started having the plain milk. So real food, well, I mean, we call it real food, but real food can't compete on a taste by taste with ultra-processed food. And so it's really tricky. We have to minimize, I guess, the exposure to the ultra-processed food, crowd it out with real food so that they can at least have a fighting chance.
Yeah, definitely. And that crowding out is the approach that we actually talk about. Like when we're trying to empower kids, our kids are far more conscious of environmental impacts than we ever were. But it's also a conversation that parents and schools feel more open to have, is about the environmental impacts for food. So we talk about foods that are friendly for our one body for life and our one planet Earth. So, if you think about, we do a bit of a demonstration where we empty like popper boxes out on a floor, and we'll talk about, how friendly are these to the environment? How long does it take to break down, And then we can talk about, there's 7 teaspoons of sugar in one of those little drinks, and the difference between a beautiful orange or an apple and the fibre that slows down the sugar that's in there compared to all the fibre that's been taken out. And so if you're having troubles at home with your kids about food, start to have conversations with them about the environmental impacts, because they'll often pick up on that more. I remember when we were travelling Australia, one of our, classes, homeschooling classes, was that we took our kids to a turtle hospital up in Queensland in Townsville, and they had those massive, beautiful turtles that they were rehabilitating because they had pulled out plastic bags and things out of their throat. And they're the conversations that we can say that we can change. If you've got 2 packets today, what would be friendlier for our one planet Earth? Could we take one of them out and bring an apple instead? Like that kind of conversation. the gift that I got from that dietitian that kind of trolled me was that it actually really made me think about labels of food, because I used to talk about real food and processed food, and of course she was going to town about there is no such thing about processed food, it's all just food, and being totally transparent with everyone that's listening out there, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, I'm actually just a mum who has become very, very passionate. I'm at, done all my health coaching certification, but I read research papers relentlessly. And the research papers still refer to real food. So it really, really made me step back and go, well, how can we do this better? So our main schools program become about making friends with food, all kinds of food. And, which ones are friendlier for our One Body for Life, which ones are, and so removing those labels, because when we have labels like, that's a snack food or that's junk food or that's good food, we attach emotion to those words. But when you just say that's a carrot and that's a chocolate, like you can't, you know what I mean? It's so what is it that we can do that can find itself sort of fit into helping body positivity, but also going beyond, what our dietary guidelines are saying. I mean, that's one of our biggest challenges in schools, is that we don't actually talk about the Australian dietary guidelines, because we just talk about foods that support us and foods that don't. They're all, part of the dietary guidelines, but...
Well, I mean, the most difficult thing with the dietary guidelines is that, again, food companies are very clever, and they make foods that fit within the dietary guidelines, technically, but they're ultra processed, and they'll, slap high fiber and now, high protein, high fiber. They're the two buzzwords for the 2026. And now everyone's fiber maxing, and protein added to everything suddenly turns something that's perhaps not body friendly into what somebody might think is. And this is the confusing thing, I think, for parents, is that they don't know what is healthy and what's not healthy in a supermarket.
Yeah, and don't even get me started that our Health Star rating system that's supposed to make it easier for people, it is actually misleading, because, yes, it's supposed to be comparing two products in the same range, but the way it's calculated and is,
and nobody knows that. Like, they think everyone knows that. But what it means is that you get, some muesli that's still got loads of sugar in it, but it's got, it's low fat and it's low salt, so it's got high fiber. So it gets 5 stars. And then you compare it with a block of cheese, it's got 2 stars, and they go, oh, well, obviously the muesli's, like, you're not comparing apples with apples.
I guess it's now overwhelming. There's over 60 peer-reviewed studies from journals like Lancet, the American Medical Association Journal, Nature Journal, like, that really show that food is directly linked to learning, behaviour and mental health. And the alarming thing is that we know that 55% of our average weekly grocery spend now is on discretionary foods. Like, we still call them discretionary foods, but most of those are actually ultra-processed. And all of these studies are actually showing, 22 to 48% risk of increased depression and anxiety when we have consistent consumption of ultra-processed foods. Now, let's just unpick that, because consistent, for my mind, would be saying, well, that's something, consistent, I have it every day. We know that 99% of children are having at least one ultra-processed food in their lunchbox a day. We know that, 47% of their overall energy intake comes from ultra-processed foods. So if you're a mum that's out there and you've been really doing your best to feed your children foods that are grown in nature, know that, yes, it's hard work and you might be getting pushback, but the science is very, very clear. That doesn't mean, don't pop one in, every now and again, or when the wheels fall off. which it happens often. But just know that you're actually doing things to protect your child's mental health. You know, there's now 24% increased association of ADHD-like symptoms with ultra-processed food consumption. So let me just be very, very clear, because I did get attacked in social media when I shared that stat recently in the study. This isn't saying that food is causing ADHD or ADHD-like behaviours. What it's actually saying is that if you have a child that has ADHD or is experiencing ADHD-like symptoms, paying attention to what they're eating can improve those conditions. It's not saying that it's causing it. Like, I just need to be really clear on that. And then there's studies that actually show 28% of learning and cognition actually declines when there's consistent consumption. So, you know, our kids are in their formative years at school, designed for learning, and yet it's showing, you know, I love Felice Jacker, you know, like her, she talks about how the hippocampus actually is shrinking. They can see that. The beautiful thing is we now know it's neuroplastic, and the more that we feed it nourishing foods from nature, the more it will replenish. But right now, you know, it's actually shrinking.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. I think what you just described then, we use the garden analogy for a lot, particularly with the gut microbiome, but it's the same with the brain. If you look after it, or if you don't look after it, it withers away and dies, but you can rejuvenate it. And if you pay attention, start watering it, start feeding it, nourishing it. It's really, I mean, life is just about nourishment, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not just, you know, food is one element, but nourishment in terms of, I know you love talking about getting outside in the sun and the difficulties that you've had to go through recently to actually do that.
I know. To do something that's seemingly simple is...
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more to it, but, you know, it really is. Food is, we eat every single day, multiple times a day. And so one thing that I'd love to say is that you get a lot of opportunities through the day. Don't put all the pressure on the dinner table. Don't put all your pressure on getting the veggies into them at dinner time. Let's start to think about how on the weekend can you reposition breakfast to include vegetables, for instance, because imagine if they already get one serve of their vegetables at breakfast time and you don't have to try to put another pour on their plate at dinner time, and you're not stressing about that. So give yourself a break and spread it across. Don't put all the pressure on yourself at the end of the day when everyone is exhausted.
Oh, I know, and all your kid wants to eat is white pasta with no sauce. It's like, oh, all right.
We've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. So, Belle, you have programs to help people with lunchboxes or dinner ideas in real food for their kids. Tell us a bit about those.
Well, I'm very much like you and Mary. It's all about, we can't hold any more in our head. So it's about little systems. So, you know, I've got a breakfast reset program, which is really a very simple cook along where within an hour I will help you make a week's worth of breakfast. You know, it's really, really simple. The reason why I do that is not for you to be pushing these on your kids for breakfast, but to nourish ourselves, because we will often pick up the corners of the toast as we're rushing out the door, not have packed our own lunchbox and get to 3:00 in the afternoon and realise we haven't fed ourselves. So this is about an investment of 1 hour of your time that will make sure that while you're packing the school lunchboxes, if you really don't have time to sit down and eat, you'll be showing your kids that you're eating breakfast as well. Because if you're saying to them breakfast is important before going to school, but you're not eating breakfast, why would they believe us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And one of the beautiful things about starting with breakfast is that not only are we nourishing ourselves, but your kids start seeing it. So my kids loved eggs until they were 4, both of them. Now they're 19 and 15. And my son has slowly started liking the little quiches that I make, that I have for myself, because in food tech at school he learnt to make them. So now he sees me eating them, and so now I make my tub, and he's helping himself at 15, comes out, gets them out of the fridge and helps himself. That's become his afternoon snack after school. So don't underestimate the things that we do and role model, how powerful it is. And the reason why I call them reset is it's all about, you know what, you're going to be really good, and then the wheels will fall off, and don't beat yourself up. When you get ready, reset and just start again. Invest another hour and, set yourself up. So I've got that for breakfast. That's a really, simple program. I've got a 5-week lunchbox reset, which is really, you could sit down and watch all the education modules in 3 hours, but they're like little 15-minute videos. You could do one a week or whatever. And it's about how do you set up a system so that not only can you pack your lunchboxes for your family, but your kids start to pack it. So imagine a world where you didn't have to pack lunchboxes, right?
Do you know, I felt a bit mean about this, but I've decided I don't need to feel mean anymore. I stopped cooking for my kids when my youngest was 16. And part of the reason was that, in fact, it might have been earlier than that. In fact, it was earlier than that. It was because I had my own, revelation and changed from my ultra-processed carbohydrate-laden lifestyle to my low-carb, whole food-laden lifestyle. And they're vegetarian. And they're vegetarian by choice, and that was fine. But I didn't want to cook 2 dinners anymore. And I just decided, you know what? I've done dinners. You can eat I'm going to cook enough. If you want to eat what I'm cooking, that's fine. You can have that. Or there is food ingredients, like actual ingredients, and you can cook your own. And you know how to cook now. You've learned it at school. And so you have to cook your own dinners, which people were horrified. But honestly, my kids now, they're kidults, they know how to cook. They feed themselves. They eat well.
It's a real gift, it really is a gift, and a gift to ourselves, because there's plenty of research that shows that food is the biggest stressor in a family household. It causes problems with marriages because partners aren't on board and we get hung up on it and we want to control everything. And then, there's so much, so many things, which is actually why in every program I do, I always have a little module on mindset, because it's a bit like, I don't know if anyone's read that Mel Robbins book, Let Them Theory.
Let Them Theory, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, you know what, let them. If they don't want to eat what I eat, I'm going to still show up and cook what I'm going to cook, and, there'll always be something there for them. So they're not going to go hungry, but let me show up how I want to show up for my own health, and knowing it's good for their health, but not push it down their throats.
Yeah, not get emotionally invested if they reject your food.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I just actually want to share a letter. When my daughter finished high school, the year after, she went to America as a summer camp counsellor. And I just want to read what she wrote in the letter. Also, I'm forever grateful for your cooking skills. I've never met anyone else who is so consistently as well fed as I am. And that's a massive part of what is keeping me thinking about America. I won't be able to eat your food, little sad face. The knowledge that you've taught me about food and cooking is invaluable, and I hope I can share it with my children one day too.
Oh.
So, I mean, mind you, this is the same girl who, after 2 years at summer camp summer camp, sat at the dinner table last night after eating delicious crumb chicken, greens, and everything that my husband had cooked. And she said, what I wouldn't do to have a bag of chips with red 40 in it. I just want you to know, mums, grandparents, the best thing that you can do is show up the way that you know that you need to. And when your kids, they will go off, they're going to see this food everywhere else, they're going to do it, but just know that in the home, it's your narrative. And that's the gift. I know that when she moves out of home properly, she'll get to a point where she recognises, she understands her body enough. She's had years of talking about how her body feels. So,
I totally agree. And when my kids were teens, I didn't talk about food. I didn't talk about it. Like we just ate real food. I didn't criticize or comment on any of their whatever stash they had in their rooms or in the pantry or whatever. You just don't need to make a big deal about it. And it's, again, just continual modeling on foods that make your body feel good, or foods that make you strong, or foods that make you think clearly, or whatever language works. I think that is the key. And then as they're now adults, of course they still have junk food, but they're not in the proportion of kids that have 80% of their diet as ultra-processed food.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's just important that we're doing the best that we can at any given time, and recognise that we're not robots. And even, look, AI is robots. They get it wrong all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, believe in yourself, focus on everything that, you and Mary talk about, which is just eating the foods that are nourishing to our body and brain, that reduce inflammation, because our body gets inflammation from so many other things, lack of sleep, hello me, not moving our body enough, hello me, so anything that you can do that for yourself, that role models it to your kids, and allow yourself to slip up.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, Belle, if people want to connect with you, follow you on socials, where do they follow? What are they looking for?
It's The Root Cause, so THEROOTCAUSE, AU, because there's a heavy metal rock band in Britain called The Root Cause.
Right.
The AU, and you'll find me on both Instagram and Facebook. I should get better over at LinkedIn one of these days.
It's too hard to do it all. Don't worry, I do the same. Yes, too many balls. TikTok, LinkedIn. Oh, yes, it's hard to be good at everything.
So, my website's therootcause.com.au, and the top part is really about, joining up to get my fortnightly newsletter, which is just tips, and I talk about life in general. I'll probably talk about the red 40.
Yes, I've signed up.
Thank you.
Yes.
The ebook needs to be updated, but we won't go there. But down the bottom, if you're interested in breakfast reset or lunchbox reset, then there's information there. My dinner reset program is a little bit, I kind of open that and we do it as a challenge together. So that's currently not open, but you can, pop me an email and let me know if you're interested in doing that. And that's, again, it's all about the systems. We don't need recipes. I mean, I think if everyone opens their phone and has a look at the tabs that are open, you will see lots of recipes. We don't need recipes. We just need to know what's the things that work for my family, that I'm happy with the ingredients, and I can use those ingredients across multiple meals, keep it at that, and then occasionally bring something, anyway, that's what Dinner Reset's about, like just helping you set that up. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, I salute you. Thank you for all the good work you're doing. Raising awareness around food in schools is massive. And, I can't imagine how both exciting and joyful it must be, mixed in with a little bit of trepidation from, the pushback of the trollers, all of the vested interest groups. But I think I love that reframe that means you're making a difference. So yay to you.
Yeah. Thank you. I do apologise, should say if anyone is interested in having us come to your school, on the website you can go to therootcause.com.au/MW Making Friends, MFWF, Making Friends with Food, and you'll find the information there, and you can fill in like an inquiry form and we'll reach out and chat to you about, how we might go about doing that.
Oh, that sounds great. And we'll put the links to all of these in the show notes. So if you're driving, don't stop and try and look at it, but just know that you can go to the show notes and all of Belle's links will be in there. And yes, teachers, if you're out there, or if you're a mum at a school or a dad at a school and you think that it would be helpful for your school to have this, lots of schools will have heard of Healthy Harold, and Harold's been around for a long time. He is funded by Sanitarium. So he's actually Sanitarium's giraffe. He's not an independent giraffe. He's a giraffe, isn't he, Harold?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So he's not an independent giraffe. So just keep that little bit of information in your back pocket, because it's always just something to think about.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Thank you for sharing that.
You are welcome. All right, gorgeous woman. Thank you so much for being on. And for all our lovely listeners, have a spectacular week, and may your life be easy this week. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualised medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.